My name's Joe. I'm a crystal meth addict. Wow, what a crew. How many of you are here for the first time tonight? Very good. First of all, welcome. And second of all, if you've never been to something like this, you might experience this as a little different. What we do here at Position of Neutrality is every week we go through the instructions for a step or so, and we take them out of Alcoholics Anonymous' book. Do you know why we use Alcoholics Anonymous' book? Yeah, the 12 steps have been proven that they work, and the original book of instruction in the 12 steps is AA's book. So we adapt it to suit our needs in Crystal Meth Anonymous. And if those of you are wondering why a guy my age is up here doing a CMA meeting, I've been asked that. The reason is that CMA doesn't have a singleness of purpose, and we want to make sure everyone knows they're welcome here. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's why we use this fellowship. So it may seem a lot like an AA meeting to you, because we're going to read out of their book, but everyone's welcome here. So where's my show of hands for people who have been blessed with a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps and are now working with others? Good. The rest of you will be raising your hands soon if you want to get well. And we'll talk about that tonight. Okay? So the instructions for step 12 tonight, we're in step 12. Those of you that aren't there, don't worry. The steps are all inclusive. We will catch you up tonight. Okay? The instructions are found in chapter 7, page 89 of your book. And if you have a book to read along, I recommend that you read along in your own book. It's not a very good idea to let other people read your big book for you. Matter of fact, I think I've been to lots of meetings of the fellowship over a number of years, and I don't think most of them read our book. Just saying. So it would help if you read your own book and then you find your experience. What I'm going to do here tonight is I'm going to show you how I find my experience in this book, and I'm going to encourage you to have your experience with this book. And if we both do our job, we're going to share a spiritual experience here tonight. Sound like a plan? All right. Notice the name of the chapter, chapter 7.
Working with others.
Working with others. Well, how come the step says having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps? We tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs, but they got a chapter called Working with Others.
Carrying the message.
What's your
Because
question? To connect.
we work with humans, like in general, not necessarily alcoholics, but people around us. And we practice those principles.
What message are we carrying, right?
Instructions.
And whose message are we carrying? AA's or mine, huh?
AA's.
You guys notice that doesn't really matter whether you're doing spiritual practice or you're doing human practice, you're carrying some message?
Yeah.
Everybody shows us how to stay or how to go, don't they? So what did they tell us our human problems were?
In the mind.
Difficulty in personal relationships. You guys relate to that? Couldn't seem to be a real help to people. Couldn't control our emotional natures. Do you relate to being human? So my problem was working with others. How many of you discovered that? Maybe after some period of abstinence. So they're going to teach us how to do it. Have you ever been in the rooms and thought, why don't they give us a course on sponsorship in AA? They wrote a whole book on it, which is what we're trying to show you. They hid the secrets in this book, How to Recover. You haven't done any of the steps until you've taken this power out for a walk, try and heal people with it. All the other steps simply arm me with the facts about myself. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I tried to carry that message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all my affairs, which would explain working with others. Does that make sense? And the reason we do that, so you understand, if you're an alcoholic of the hopeless variety, an addict of the hopeless variety, you're going to get to God or you're going to get to God. So it's an effort to tell you the truth about what we found here. This is a path to a relationship with an indwelling power greater than ourselves. But will overcome my desire to do things that are destructive. Not necessarily drinking and drugging, but that's one of my favorites. Okay, so working with others. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. Catch the promise?
Yep, it works.
Other activities are gonna
What's the other promise?
Activities work well.
Intensive work with others works, and other activities are going to fail.
Yep.
How many of you have been told that in your journey? They were emphatic in the first step experience that if we don't do this, take this ministry out and try and help others, we will not be able to overcome the trials and low spots that lie ahead. How many of you guys that have been here 10 years or more can tell them there's trials and low spots coming? How many of you have been here a week or two have discovered that's true too? Goes on to say that this is our 12th suggestion. You think that the 12th suggestion is to do this because it works when other activities fail? A lot of people think that, but that's not the suggestion. The suggestion is the unselfish reason why I might want to do it, given that selfishness was my problem. And I know that because the English language, the idea follows the colon. See how they wrote it? That 12th suggestion, they put it in italics, they put a colon there to catch our attention. I might want to do it because I'm selfish by nature. It works when other activities fail. But the 12th suggestion is the entire psychic change. How many of you have recognized that at some point in our journey we go from taker to giver? So here's the 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they're very ill. How many of you have gone to that alcoholic scene, that addict scene, where no one could get them out, but you could get down there with them, you could talk to them, and you could get them to walk out on their own steam? It's not a lie. And if we won't take that power out for a walk, and we might be the only human being on the planet right now that can, that would be very selfish, wouldn't it? And if you haven't had that experience, latch on to somebody here. We have them regularly, and they increase our faith. Okay? All right, so it says you can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they're very ill. And then some promises. Life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. In case no one ever explained to you the all-inclusive nature of the steps, all the faiths that down through the ages, doesn't really matter what they are. They've got two characteristics if they're true faiths. One, you can examine them with your logical senses. It makes sense, so you can move forward in it consciously. And the second is it's followed by signs and wonders. You don't have to check me. Go talk to your priest, minister, or rabbi. And they'll tell you the same thing, right? Or any spiritual teacher. And the truth about that is that this fellowship does grow up around us if we take this healing power out for a walk, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, you guys been around long enough that you've seen your people help others. It's a pretty powerful experience, isn't it? Okay, so then it goes on to say, we know you'll not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. I'm going to jump from there because this is a big chapter. I want to go to page 90, the top of that page. They're going to give us some instruction about how we get to know people. It says, when you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. If he doesn't want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him.
Yep.
That's bad.
Why not?
You might spoil it later.
Who's the persuader?
Alcohol.
No.
Alcohol, cocaine, heroin, methamphetamines, life, right? How many of you had people try and persuade you?
How'd that work out?
Yeah, I know we get scared, and if we aren't tapped into that power within us to know that they're in the hands of a loving God and that they're fine, we're going to get all scared and we're going to chase them and we're going to beg them to do things they can't do. But the reason I want to do it is, remember, I'm trying to get rid of my selfishness. I must, or it kills me. The reason I don't want to chase them or try and persuade them is I might spoil a later opportunity.
Yep.
How many of you got reasonable at the hand of alcohol, cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin? And when you got reasonable, no one had to persuade you.
No.
Huh? Look at this room full of people. There wasn't anybody out there carrying billboards directing traffic in here. You know what I'm saying? We are persuaded. We're reasonable right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then it says this advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing they're dealing with a sick person. Now, I want to jump from there to 91, where we're most likely going to meet them. Where's the most likely place we're going to meet these new addicts?
AA meetings.
Probably in recovery meetings or in recovery houses, that kind of thing, right? Okay. Yeah. So it goes on to tell us, middle of that page, see your man alone if possible. What are the complexities of that in the average fellowship meeting?
Yeah, good
It's
luck.
difficult.
It can be difficult unless you've learned some techniques.
Right.
Let me a show of hands of you people who were high or drunk at a number of AA meetings or recovery meetings. You can be uniquely useful. Have you noticed in the fellowship they're not terribly warm or welcoming to those of us that are in there lit up? Because we scare them.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to condemn them. They're frightened of us. But who wants it worse? The one that sits in that meeting desperately hoping for some morsel of truth, high as a kite, or the one that's in there acting out, pretending everything's okay?
Yep. Just
Just
saying.
saying. And if you've been that guy, then you can be uniquely useful because you know the experience. So when everyone else is shying away from the guy that's angry, or nodding out, or can't remember it's a non-smoking facility. I mean, remember the guy sitting there lighting a cigarette. We don't smoke in here. I'm the only one that ever did that. God, I feel so alone. The point is that we'll recognize characteristics that others can't see, and we will feel them because we're tapped into a consciousness within us.
Yep.
We'll know them. We'll know them by their speech. We'll know them by their body movements, won't we?
Yep.
And then all we've got to do is get them alone and show them some compassion. Because we have a power within us to show compassion. And when we show compassion, we'll feel compassion. How many of you guys know what I'm talking about?
Right here.
We have a power that flows through us that gives them comfort, even when we're disturbed. And in that passage, it gives us comfort. And if you guys haven't been explained that, that's why we do it. This isn't a bunch of naturally selfless individuals here. We're not terribly understanding lot, are we,
Oh,
Brady?
no.
Okay, so after a while, turn the talk to some phase of drinking. Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself. Okay, so what's your drinking habits, symptoms, experiences? What's that look like? Now you've got him alone. How many of you came in here a while back and you remember the old timers always had a meeting before the meeting, a meeting after the meeting, you may or may not wanted to go? Did you notice that at that meeting before the meeting after the meeting, first liar don't stand a chance?
Yeah.
Those are the meetings where we tell you who we really are. During the meeting, we're more likely to tell you who we want you to think we are. Does that make sense? Yeah. So make use of what we offer, because we'll learn all about our similarities at those little gatherings. Okay? Goes on to say that if he wishes to talk, let him do so. Why might I want to do that? They don't know nothing. They ain't sober long.
Yeah. They got experience.
What were you willing to do? What were you going to do other than what you were willing to do when you got here? Nothing, right?
Nothing.
I've sponsored hundreds of people. I've never got one to do anything they weren't willing to do, ever. Anyone else? I got them to say they would do it, but I never got them to do it.
Yeah. That's true.
Who's the one in delusion? The one who thinks they've convinced the delusional person? Or the delusional person? We're kind of all in it together, aren't we? Okay. So it goes on to tell us if you let them talk, you'll get a better idea of how you ought to proceed. And the only way I ought to proceed is tell them the truth. This is what I had to do. This is what I feared. This is what I did instead. This is what I got when I finally did it. This is what I got. You might want to consider it. Any of you? How many of you had the experience at some of these we bought? It's not the shit we read on the wall, right?
Nope.
How many of you balked a few times today?
Yep.
Pretty sure someone caused your pain.
Yep.
I thought it was a parrot today. Okay. All right, so it goes on to say, if he's not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit, but say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. How many of you recognize that there ain't much point in telling them how I quit, because I don't quit nothing?
Oh, no. Not a quitter.
That's experiential. How many of you still think of yourself as having quit? The difference, and we talk about it sometimes in here, there's an experience of being recovered. And the difference in being recovered as opposed to recovering is it's been removed.
Yep.
It's just gone. My life has been raised to a level, and I didn't quit smoking, but I don't smoke anymore, and I can be around people smoking, and it's a different experience of people who quit smoking.
Yep.
And I can be in the bars with people drinking, and I can be in the dope house with people doping, and it doesn't matter.
Nope.
Because it's been removed.
Yep.
Does that make sense? It's a different experience. Okay, so then it goes on to say, if he's in the serious mood, dwell on the troubles liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. So what would it be like to moralize or lecture?
Saying that alcohol is bad.
Yeah, a lot of times we tell people what they must do.
Don't talk at them, talk to them.
There you go. Don't resist the temptation to talk at them. Summon the power within you, get down there with them and talk to them. That's what they're suggesting. Does that make sense? Okay. If his mood is light, tell him humorous stories of your escapades. You guys got any?
Oh, yeah.
Just a few.
That's what the steps are arming you with, is those stories. Because if you're new in the journey, you may not find anything humorous, and we get you. But as we get some distance, we did do some silly shit. And if it was all not fun, we wouldn't have stayed out there so damn long. Right? Okay. All right, so get him to tell some of his. When he sees you know all about the drinking game, commence to describe yourself as alcoholic. Tell him how baffled you were and how you finally learned that you were sick. How baffled were you? Do you know those facts? How many of you came around in the 80s and remember those stupid treatment center commercials that were on every 5 minutes, and I was sure they were talking to me?
Just say no.
Well, no, they wanted me in a damn treatment center back when insurance paid for it. And I don't know why they had such an attraction, but they did. Any of you relate to that? Okay. How many of you came later and you just kept thinking, no, I can get over this. I just chose to use. How many of you chose to use?
Oh, yeah.
Over and over.
We cannot make a choice with an unsound mind. It helps to come to believe this an illness. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to convince you of your experience. I'm telling you, when I got here, I had an unsound mind. I was incapable of choice. So it really didn't matter whether I thought I chose to use or I didn't. It was no different than getting on the roof of the building, jumping off, and halfway down saying, I chose to hit the ground. It gave me a certain level of comfort to think I was in control, but the process was in motion. Any of you baffled like that? Okay. So then it says, give them an account of the struggles you made to stop. How many of you can remember some struggles?
Oh, yeah.
Those of you that are here from halfway houses, sometimes halfway house residency is considered a struggle to stop. You'd be surprised at how many people I meet who don't think they've ever made a struggle to stop. I've sat down with guys and said, no, I've never made a serious effort to stop yet. Now I'm meeting them on their 7th commitment. But they had never made a serious effort. See what I'm saying? Okay. So it helps to get armed with those facts and understand that we've probably been struggling a while because we don't get here on a winning streak, do we?
No.
Show him the mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree. We suggest you do this as we've done it on the chapter on alcoholism. So, how did they do it? They want me to be the book. Don't show them the book. Be the book. from your own experience. It would help if you were armed with the facts about yourself so you could be a proper witness. What did they talk about? The queer mental twist that leads to the first drink, that unconscious place. My inability to bring to consciousness with sufficient force the memory of suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. How many of you got here with plenty of memory of suffering and humiliation, got the wrinkles out of your belly, and signed up for another round?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we know that's a true promise if we've had it. So what is that for you? When they talked about it, remember when they talked about that queer mental twist? They talked about Jim. You guys relate to Jim?
Yeah.
Jim's the car guy. He lost his business through his drinking. He now has to work for the business that he lost through drinking. And when he went to work, he was a little annoyed. Probably they weren't running it right. Any of you relate to Jim?
Oh, yeah.
Because after all, he used to own it. Yeah? So then he gets there and he has a few words with the boss. Nothing serious.
Nothing serious.
Any of you ever have a few words with the boss but nothing serious? And then after he's had this little altercation with the boss, he decides that although he's at the car dealership where people come to buy cars, he's going to go out in the woods looking for people to buy cars. How do you relate to him?
Yeah.
And on his way out to the woods where these car buyers are at, he passes a roadside place, decides he's hungry, and oh, by the way, this little sandwich joint's got a bar. How many of you guys, we're in a Crystal Meth Anonymous meeting, how many of you got through the old neighborhood, thought maybe I'll just stop at the dope house, show the fellas how good I'm doing. Let them get a look at me.
Oh, yeah. I did that.
Okay, so it doesn't change much in 70 years. Remember, there's a book of experiences and theories. So he's in there, and now he has the thought come to him, hell, there may be somebody in there that wants to buy a car. Can you imagine the fortuitous experience? Customers for cars are coming out of the woodwork. And we didn't even make the woods yet. But now we're at the sandwich joint. There's customers everywhere. Any of you ever had that experience?
Yeah, I have.
Well, think about it.
I saw cars. I used to get
Just
them.
show up somewhere and wow, it's looking good. This is going to be a good day. Okay. Anyway, then the thought crosses his mind after he has a sandwich and a glass of milk that if he were to put a little whiskey in the milk, wouldn't hurt him on a full stomach. I don't know what lies you told you about how you're going to get away with one more little... How many of you went on just a little meth or cocaine holiday at Christmas? What would it hurt? Yeah, wedding days. Any, you know, just something to take the edge off.
Come back 3 months later.
Sometimes we started at Thanksgiving, we didn't make it for Christmas. Okay, that's the idea. So he puts the shot of whiskey in the milk and he slams the milk. And that experiment went so well, he decided to try it again. And so he had another one, and then he started another journey to the asylum. And they don't really tell you the lengthy period of time that takes, but a lot of us have had that. How about Fred? You guys remember Fred?
Yep.
Fred was someone that self-knowledge fixed him. He wasn't as bad as the rest of you people. Fred heard what you had to say about alcoholism, and he, not me, not so much as one little drop. I'm a businessman, and I haven't taken it to the lengths you fellows have. So he goes to New York. He has a great day. He's been sober some period of time, and the thought crosses his mind that maybe a few highballs with dinner would be good. How many of you have been around recovery for some period of time and got to thinking, you know, perhaps I overreacted? We can relate to Fred. Notice, okay, you guys have got, okay, so it goes on to say that he will match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. Do you notice how you did that?
Yep.
So if you do what you just watched me do, and you matched my mental inconsistencies, you are 12-stepping. Does that make sense? And those of you that are brand new that didn't raise your hand, the all-inclusive nature of the steps says if you leave here tonight with a sponsor, you're in step 12. It's kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you will help them more than they will help you.
Yep.
That's fact. You won't believe it, but someday you'll know it.
Yep.
Because you'll be watching somebody else show you. Huh?
Yep.
Okay. So then it goes on, if you're satisfied that he's a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. I'm fairly satisfied you guys are real. I mean, I don't know about the quiet ones, but you loud ones, you know, you apparently understand Fred and Jim. So if you had, I'm satisfied you're a real alcoholic. Remember when they talked about what a real alcoholic was? Seldom mildly intoxicated, always more or less insanely drunk, real Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You guys have some personality changes when you're using?
Yep.
You do observe incredible tragic things while using? Okay, that's the real one. Okay, and if I'm satisfied, then I can go ahead and dwell on the hopeless feature. What's the hopeless feature of the malady? It's the same thing they try and tell us from the beginning. The book's laid out the way they want us to present it. So they start with the doctor's opinion. They tell us about the doctor's theory that we have an allergy. When I put it in my body, it affects me differently than the average person, and I experience a phenomenon they call craving that's beyond my mental control, and I end up progressively taking on more and more. And so I got here thinking I used the way I wanted to use, and I found out that the way I used was the only symptom I had in common with every other alcoholic or addict that dies in their addiction.
Yep.
Any of you have that discovery?
Yep.
And then the hopeless feature is that allergy combined with my utter inability to leave it alone, regardless of need or desire.
Yep.
A mental obsession. And I don't know what the lie is you tell you, but the lie I told me is I was doing what I wanted to do, and I'll just summon the will and I won't do that anymore.
Yep.
Then I was pretty sure I overreacted, and I went and did it some more. Yeah. Okay, so then show him from your own experience how the queer mental condition surrounding that first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower. See how the steps would help you with that? Have you gone and looked at that mental blank spot for you? How many of you had that discovery at some point that no matter how bad you wanted to stop or you wanted to stay stopped, there was no way that you were going to stop or stay stopped, depending on where that was experientially for you?
Yep.
You guys relate to what they're talking? Can you bring it to consciousness? Because if you'll witness that to people, they'll feel you.
Yep.
I often share from here one, but I've had several, but one was that I was drinking all night. I had to drink continuously, and I was also an opiate addict, so I had to medicate profusely, but I would come into delirium tremens within about 6 hours. I had gotten that saturated. And I was supposed to meet my parents for church. And so I'm driving to church, but in order to be well enough to go into the church, I had to drink several tumblers of gin and get the medications in me to get stabilized, and I took the bottle with me under the seat of the car. By the time I got there, I'd been throwing up. I smelled like I'd been living like we live, if you're anything like me. And I got there and I wandered in, and everyone could smell me and they could see me, and I could just feel the condemnation. And I sat next to my parents, and I could feel how embarrassed they were to have me sitting there. I could feel it. It was crushing. And I sat there through a church service, and I prayed the entire time that somehow I would get the power to stop. And I knew I was going to get up from that pew, and I was going to go out and get that bottle out from under the seat, and I was going to pour it down my neck and drive home. Any of you relate to that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That reaches people, doesn't it?
Yep.
See, because that's the truth. That's what happened to me. Okay? I don't know what it looked like for you, but you can probably remember one. Some of you guys that are getting tears in your eyes, we've got similar experiences, don't we? And when we go deep, we feel each other. And when we do that, we touch each other.
Yep.
We make a connection. Okay? All right. So then it says, don't at this stage refer to this book unless he's seen it and wishes to discuss it. Guys, sometimes talk about people being thumpers. We're really not. We're scholars.
Yep.
If we're doing this thing, we don't need a book to talk to people about our story. Why do you need a book to talk about your story? This book's a fucking prop. So you'll think I have credibility until you get to know me. Because the truth is, the power to inspire you isn't me. It's not of me. It flows through me. It's not my power. But since we're used to this realm, this world, we usually start looking at people first. Huh? But when we start feeling people, we know it's different. Now you understand what they say, we try to carry this message? The people who are carrying this message will embody it. You'll know them. Does that make sense? Those of you that have been here a while, you know what I'm talking about. And those of you that haven't been here a while, there's a reason you're attracted to something like this. Okay. All right, so let him draw his own conclusion, or be careful not to brand him an alcoholic. Let him draw his own conclusion. If he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him that possibly he can. He's not too alcoholic. How many of you want to be told you're not addict enough? We're not throwing them under the bus, guys. If they're not going to seek their own experience, it doesn't matter how bad we want your recovery. You're not going to get well till you want it as bad as we want it for you. It's just the way it is.
Yep.
And so we're just trying to get them to convince us any way we can. Okay? And if they need another experience, then they've told us that back in more about alcoholism. Step over to the nearest dope house. Fire you up, bowl. Stop abruptly. You ever always laughs like it's impossible. Why do we know it's impossible? But we
try.
Insists to be severely afflicted, there may be little chance he can recover by himself. Guys, none of us can recover by ourselves if we're this guy. And no human power is going to do it. And you won't know that until you have the experience of the power flowing through you that's not of you. But that'll happen quick. It'll happen quick. Think back to Bill's story. Ebby, at 60 days sober, approached him while Bill was drunk and drinking. And the power of the experience he shared was enough to stop that hopeless alcoholic, send him to treatment, and start a fellowship that we've all benefited from for the last 70 years. Now, I don't know how many of you drink gin by the quart, but our comprehension level is not great. So it wasn't knowledge that helped Bill. You understand? So if you have an experience with it, you know, okay? I'm going to jump over to, let's jump over to 93. And I'm going to just start at the bottom of 92 where it says, even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he's become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask you that question if he will. What if he won't?
Don't waste your time.
It's entirely intuitive, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes.
I know that I don't want to convince you. I may have a few more questions for you. Sometimes my desperate desire to fix a situation is my blank spot. I'm not paying attention to the power within me. Sometimes silence has a tremendous power over people who desperately want us to tell them something.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yes.
But we can talk to them and be their friend. We can get up and walk away. We can do whatever the intuition guides us, but it's not a workbook exercise. We don't ever know till we put ourselves in their space, do we? My friend Lisa called me last night. She had one she didn't know what to do with. I said, I don't know either. We just have to go sit in front of her and see. So we went and sat in front of her and saw it. She's in detox tonight. Sometimes that works out. You know what I mean? And we got to know that God's got it. And right? That's the way it is. And it's an honor to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell us what they're willing to do. But it helps if we can exchange some conversation with them and tell them the truth and not be afraid that what we're going to tell them is going to hurt them.
Right.
Yep.
Right? Okay. So then it says, tell them exactly what happened to you. Now, if they're drunk, you're probably not going to get that kind of time with them. So you just, again, intuitive, right? Stress the spiritual feature freely. Don't be afraid of it, guys. If you're the real deal and you're sitting here, it's a power in you stronger than you.
Yep.
It's just the way it is. And if we don't get in touch with that and know that that's an experience and not a concept, we're in trouble.
Yes.
His main problem centers in my mind, where all the concepts are running around. Right? Okay? And then it goes on, he can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself, and that he live by spiritual principles. That's a big deal to swallow when we get... How many of you came here as atheists or agnostics?
Yeah.
and got told this, and it's like, holy shit, what's that look like? I don't know, be at the airport with robes and cameras. It's really not that bad. Here's the deal. This is it. This is a life in the Spirit, what we're sharing here tonight. A room full of people that have a common experience of a loving God, expresses himself from within us, gives us the power to love the unlovely, because we're uniquely qualified to go in those places they go without judging them, and they know that they're not being judged when we talk to them, and they come out with us or they don't. But either way, we learn a lot about our condition, don't we?
A lot.
All right, so when dealing with such a person, you'd better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. There's no use in arousing any prejudice he may have against certain theological terms and conceptions about which he may already be confused. Guys, these guys were masterful at that. They stayed away from all those spiritual terms and they just talk about the experience. Everyone understands that we desperately want to be understood. So we seek understanding. Look at 3. Look at 11. God I understood yesterday is not the God I understand today. Many of you had that experience. The growing experience, a consciousness that God is an experience, the subject of an experience rather than the object of belief.
Yes.
It's always experienced from within, and as we become more conscious, we know things we couldn't possibly know if we weren't tapped into the Spirit.
True.
And those are the signs and wonders that allow these people to follow us, and their healing is the next one. And their healing is my healing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Don't raise such issues no matter what your own convictions are. I'm going to jump from there to 94, outline the program of action. It would help, since I'm going to carry the message of a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, that I can outline out of my own experience our program of action. AA is not mine. Does that make sense? We got a lot of people who talk about their program. How many of you think you got a really good program? Yeah. My program kept me down near dead, and I couldn't. But AA has a program that none of us like, but it works. So it's a good idea. If I remember, it's not mine; it's AA's, and I treat it with that kind of respect. Make sense? So we outlined the program of action, explaining how I made a self-appraisal. How did I do that, and when did I do that?
4 step.
Inventory. 4th step.
I started learning to inventory my thoughts and my actions in 4, right? And they started me by looking at resentments, fears. And they started me with sexual misconduct. But then I realized that it really was my relationships, right? Okay. How you straightened out the past. What's that look like?
9
Amen.
step.
Made an effort to go out and set right the wrongs of my past once I discovered them. I was given the honor to discover them through that process. Someone helped me find my part. Not only that, but they found me an ideal I was willing to grow into, and they explained to me in order to achieve that ideal, I needed to go set right wrongs to build a new foundation, take that healing power I had just gained access to out to those I've hurt, and touch them with it, give them an opportunity to grab onto it. How many of you have been able to go out and touch some family members who suffered in your addiction and strengthen their experience? So it's not a theory, it's what we do. Right? Okay. And then why you're endeavoring to be helpful to him. Why are we? Yeah, you're strengthening whatever. It's always experiential, but you're right. It may be. Probably nothing will keep us sober. It's the truth. We'll learn eventually that this power does it. It's purely grace. But the thing is, my faith gets stronger, and those certain trials and low spots that come along, they're not as low, and they're not as trying. How many of you have had that experience? Some of you are nodding, some of you are feeling it. And when we talk about feeling it, guys, we're feeling it. Okay? It's important for him to realize that your attempt to pass this on to him plays a vital part in your own recovery. And it's really important that I know that it plays a vital part in my recovery. I need to honor you, realizing you're a sick person. Because I was there, and I may be again.
Yep.
Because it's, the drinking's a symptom. I can get wrecked on all kinds of selfishness. Anybody? All right. Actually, he may be helping you more than you're helping him. Make it plain he's under no obligation to you that you hope only that he will try to help other alcoholics when he escapes his own difficulty. So that's the only condition they suggest, is that we want your feet. I'm going to work with you as long as you'll work with me. I'm going to walk with you as long as you'll walk with me. But I would suggest for your own sake you don't go through any of it if you're not willing to go through all of it, because you're going to needlessly uncover a bunch of shit that you're not going to be able to get rid of until you put it to use.
Yep.
Until I take this healing power out for a walk and touch the lives of others to help them see that they're not alone, that I did the very same things and yet I stand before them recovered, until I use that experience to heal another, it's just festering in me. That's just my experience. You guys can do it any way you want, but I don't like to take anyone, if they aren't willing to go help others, I won't even do an inventory with them. Because I don't have a right to do that to them. It sucks to have a paper that says what kind of guy I've been, and then no outlet for doing something with it.
It's true.
You know what I'm saying? Okay. Suggests how important it is that he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. How many of you tried to explain that to your new people? They don't like that, right? How many of you can relate to them?
Yeah.
And I got real problems. I need a job. Huh? So you're going to need to place the welfare of other people ahead of your own. Bullshit, huh? Right? But we get it, right? Don't you understand? That's the way we were. Which I once thought as you did. But I have learned that my life depends on my constant thought of others and how to meet their needs. And if you don't believe me, walk with me. I'll show you. We all come here with suffering, and the suffering doesn't go away. How we handle the suffering is entirely the secret to life.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Okay. So make it clear he's not under pressure, that he needn't see you again if he doesn't want to. You should not be offended if he wants to call it off, for he's helped you more than you've helped him. It really helps to know this is your big book. How many of you have sponsored somebody and you work, spend hours and hours with them, and they said, "Hey man, I got another sponsor."
Yep.
Or just never come back.
Son of a bitch. I hope it works out for you. Hey man, it's an experience. We grow through it, right? But it's really good to own that kind of thought life. Because really what we are as humans, we live in a world of ideas, and there's a war going on all the time. And that distraction about how other people think of me is a delusion that'll keep me sick forever.
Yep.
I've got a decision. I'm going to go out and heal those who will be healed. The secret to the healing power working through me is it will give me the power to comfort them regardless of their disturbance. But unless they'll get up and walk, they ain't going to get well.
Nope.
But God's got them because there's a signature that flows through them, we know. You guys, if we keep talking about effect, a sensory effect, those of us who get here and relate to, we like the effect produced.
Yep.
It isn't because we're all a bunch of altruistic souls so much, it's we like effects produced. That's why we grow into it, right? Okay, so then it says, if your talk has been sane, quiet, and full of human understanding, you've perhaps made a friend. How many of you have touched somebody and didn't see him for a few years?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Maybe you don't even remember where you met them, but they came back and said, "Man, what you said to me saved my life."
Yep.
And you know you didn't do it, but you know that power flowing through you let you take the credit for it. And you got to admit that it feels pretty good as a human to know that you're a lifesaver. Even though you know you didn't do it.
Yes.
I didn't do it, but thank you very much for the experience. Make sense? And you guys that are feeling me know exactly what I'm talking about because we've had it happen to us. Okay? Okay. All right. So I want to jump now to... we can't not do 97, and we're going to run out of time. 97, this is your job description. This is what I was told were the 12-step promises. But this is actually our job description. It says never avoid, they went into this thing about giving people things and what have you, and whether or not we should, and that whole mental thing. But anyway, it says never avoid these responsibilities, but be sure you're doing the right thing if you assume them. Helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. Think about what they're telling you. See how they're talking about an all-inclusive nature now? They started talking about my foundation in one, but I've got no stone in my foundation. Therefore, I can't build an arch, of which 3, that decision's a keystone. The arch has to be in place before you place the keystone. So these people that I'm going to go out and touch, they're the stone in the foundation. This is the big amends, guys. This is the one, those wrongs we can never make right. We take our experience out and share it with people and heal for that power that dwells within us. Make sense? And in doing that, we get a foundation that is unshakable. Because whatever it is I'm going through, it's simply preparing me for something greater, because that's what we were promised. Greater works than these. And it happens as we walk. Does that make sense? Okay? So, a kindly act once in a while isn't enough. You have to act the Good Samaritan every day if need be. If you guys don't know the story of the Good Samaritan, check that other book. It may mean the loss of many nights' sleep, great interference with your pleasures, interruptions to your business. It may mean sharing your money in your home, counseling frantic wives and relatives, innumerable trips to police courts, sanitariums, hospitals, jails, and asylums. Your telephone may jangle at any time of the day or night. Your wife may sometimes say she's neglected. A drunk may smash the furniture in your home or burn a mattress. You may have to fight with him if he's violent. Sometimes you'll have to call a doctor and administer sedatives under his direction. Another time you may have to send for the police or an ambulance. Occasionally you'll have to meet such conditions. And 3, I ask for a job and a new employer. God, take away my difficulties that victory over them may bear witness to your power, your love, your way of life. And my job after asking for that, since God did his part, is to go out and be a proper witness for that power about how my difficulties were taken away from me. And I'm going to have to follow this job description. How many of you have been told that, man, you're spending way too much time on your recovery stuff? Congratulations, you're getting the promise. How many of you have spent innumerable trips to asylums and jails? And it's all part of it, isn't it? And it really happens for us. How many of you have administered sedatives? Anytime we try and stick them in community bridges, it takes at least a pint of sedative. Right? Just saying. Okay. Okay, so page 98, because I got to get this wrapped up. Back in the 10 and 11 instructions, they told us we were going to grow in understanding and effectiveness, and they told us rigorous discipline in my prayer and meditation so that I was improving my consciousness of the power, so that I would have a stronger intuition of what was going on. And you've heard me say from here many times, and some of you know what I'm talking about, you can't lie to me without my permission once I gain access to this power. So this is the experience, this is what we're growing in understanding and effectiveness of. It's not the matter of giving that's in question, but when and how to give. And then it goes on to say that often makes the difference between failure and success.
Yes.
And guys, we're all in it together. So their failure is our failure, and their success is our success. Does that make sense? The minute we put our work on a service plane, the alcoholic commences to rely upon our assistance rather than upon God. He clamors for this or that, claiming he cannot master alcohol until his material needs are cared for. Nonsense. Some of us have taken very hard knocks to learn this truth. See if this is you as a closing. Job or no job? Did you guys find a way to get high when you were working? Yeah. Find a way to get high when you weren't? Yeah. Wife or no wife? Whether you're in a relationship or not, did you find a way to get in a relationship with whatever you like to get your... Okay? Yeah. We simply do not stop drinking so long as we place dependence on other people ahead of dependence on God. Burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he can get well. You can get well regardless of anyone. The only condition is that you trust in God and clean house. Okay? Cool. Thanks.